Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Burke County Board of Commissioners pre-agenda meeting for Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. Thank you for being here. Let me remind you to silence all your mobile devices and be sure to turn the microphone on the podium if you come to the podium to speak so we can hear you and we get a good YouTube recording. Madam Clerk, all commissioners are present, along with County Attorney, Manager, and Finance Officer. Gentlemen, you've had the agenda now for several days. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. It's 5-0. Presentations this afternoon is going to come from Caitlin Suttermeyer, our Animal Services Director. Afternoon, Caitlin.
Hello, thanks so much for having us for this presentation. So this is going to be a little bit longer than what you're used to seeing with our Pets of the Month. We're really excited to be able to share this with you. It is celebrating 5 years of Animal Services. As of August 5th of this year, we had been in operation for 5 years, so we're really excited to share this with you guys. I know that was a little low. So just to kind of kick this off, we are the municipal shelter that serves all of Burke County. Our facility was built in the 70s. If you've never been to Animal Services, I would encourage you just to come down and visit. We do the best we can with what we've got, and you know, it serves the purpose for what we're operating with now. We do have 5 full-time staff members and 3 part-time staff members that work in the shelter to keep operations moving. And we do have 4 officers that work out in the field that run animal control related issues. And we did hire in the last year a part-time veterinarian that's really brought some of our standards of care up. She's present in the shelter a lot more, so that was a huge success bringing her on board. We do serve about 2,200 animals in our community every year. Just to kind of put that in perspective, we have 16 dog kennels and 24 cat cages, so you can imagine the amount of animals that come in on a daily basis to be able to serve that many. So we do our best. We've really looked at our goals and missions. We want to keep families and their pets together. A community that pets and families can thrive in is a community that people want to be in. So we're finding alternatives to people surrendering their pets. I think as a society, we've done a great job at just telling everybody to rush directly to the animal shelter. And that's great. That's a really great resource. And that's what we want to be. We want to be a resource. But we want people to know that there are alternatives to having to surrender your pet to the shelter, whether we can help you rehome it or, you know, provide you with assistance to be able to keep your pet ultimately. That would be a great goal. Just to kind of give you guys a little bit of a recap from where we started and where we are today. So one of the easiest ways I feel like we can explain this is what is called a live release rate. And the live release rate is the percentage of animals that leave the shelter, you know, that's 100%. How many of those animals are actually leaving the shelter alive due to or versus other outcomes such as euthanasia? So in 2018, before we were brought in to take over the shelter, the live release rate for cats was 14% and for dogs was 46%. So there were a lot of animals that were losing their lives at Burke County, and this was one of the highest kill counties in North Carolina. North Carolina being the 3rd state in the U.S. As far as killing animals. So there was public outcry for change, and Animal Services was brought under the county manager that year in 2019. And at the end of 2019, we did see, just with that transition and, you know, a group of dedicated individuals, rescue groups, the community really coming together, we did see a jump in that live release rate. So now we were seeing about 48% of our cats that were leaving the shelter were leaving alive, and about 78% of dogs were leaving alive. There were quite a few things that happened along the way. So in 2020, we were able to introduce what is called a coordinated entry program. So this is where we're actually helping people find alternatives to surrendering, and not every animal is just brought through the door. There's a lot of data that shows that is one of the best ways to manage your shelter. So you know what's coming out, you know what's coming in, and our community has been really receptive and supportive of that. We also introduced a foster program that was very instrumental in life-saving and a volunteer program. And we also took over animal control in 2020. So we knew that we wanted to do some work in that area as well. With that led to us receiving a Transformational Change Award for Burke County in 2020. And this was for a shelter of our size across the nation. We saw the biggest increase in a live release rate. So that was a really great award for us to win. In 2021, we were still being pretty reactive with animal services. And I think animal services is just historically has been reactive. So we're just trying to adopt our way out of the situation that we're in. That's not the answer to our problem. So we're still trying to stabilize. We're still being pretty reactive right now. So we started animal transports, which is a really great opportunity. So we would send our animals up north to rescue partners that did not have the amount of animals we had down here. So they were in need of animals and we had a surplus. So we're going to send our animals up there. And so that's a really great resource, but it's really just a Band-Aid to the problem that we have. But we knew it was something that we needed to do. We also wanted to start bringing our community through our front door. So we started hosting some community events. And then building and structuring our animal control program. How do we want that to look? How is that going to be impactful in our community? What does our community even look like out there? Because we haven't had animal control for very long. And then one very memorable thing also happened in 2020 to 2021. COVID. So I know everybody's so tired of hearing of it, but that was really instrumental in animal welfare. I don't know if you guys remember hearing people flooded animal shelters and they were just pulling animals out of animal shelters in gobs. And I think there was a day we may have had 3 dogs in our shelter. It was incredible. But we knew that there was probably going to be a time when this wasn't such a great thing and these animals were going to be coming back into our care. So we tried our best to try to forecast and mitigate what was going to be coming in. So we had to be a little bit more, we had to be reactive again in 2022. We had to stabilize what was happening. Our situation was not unique to Burke County. It was happening across the nation. You know, we were seeing a large amount of owner surrenders into our shelters. But one thing that I really think helped us a lot, well, that did help us a lot, was the creation of our Animal Services Foundation. So that is the nonprofit branch that helps support ongoing efforts. They do fundraising, and it's been absolutely remarkable. It's allowed us this past year in 2023 to implement some very proactive programs, because that's where we're going to start seeing our results whenever we're trying to keep animals out in the community and keep them from even coming in our front door. So with that, we established what is called a trap, neuter, and release program. I will hit on that just a little later in my presentation, but that's essentially where we're managing the outdoor population of cats in Burke County. We focused on another program. It's called a Responsible Pet Ownership Program, and it's abbreviated as RPO. And that helps people if they're issued citations or maybe they're just not fully in compliance with our animal ordinance. We can provide them resources to bring them into compliance so they're ultimately able to keep their animal and we're not having to bring it in through animal control. So that's keeping animals out of the shelter, keeping them with their people. And then field services programs. So these guys are out in the field. If somebody finds a stray animal, you know, we run it's called a finder to foster program. So would you like to foster this animal for us for the next 48 hours? Because statistics show that if that animal stays in the community it was found in for 48 hours, it has a higher chance of getting back to its owner. So that's a really great program that these guys are running. They also have scanners that they're scanning dogs for in the field and cats when they can to see if they can get them back home, and we'll give them a free ride home, you know. So that's a really great thing. So microchipping is awesome. So that led us to where we are today in 2024. And for the first 6 months of 2024, our live release rate for cats has been 88% and for dogs is 87%. So we're really happy with all of the steps that we have taken, and we really feel like we're moving in the right direction. That's supporting our community as well as the animals that we serve. With that, we did receive an award at a national conference. It was for the Life Saving Trailblazer Award, and that came with a $12,500 grant that we'll be able to use for continued efforts. So we're really happy about that. How are we taking this one step forward? So I know everybody has heard of this concept called no kill. And I think it can be a little misleading and a little confusing. I think whenever you hear no kill, you just assume that nothing in the shelter, nothing in that rescue organization is losing their lives. But what it is, it's a measurement, and that benchmark measurement is going to be 90% of the animals that leave the shelter are leaving alive. I think it's into your care are either too sick, maybe very aggressive, and they just can't be put back safely out into the community. So this 90% is what is considered no-kill, and what people are referencing whenever they talk about being a no-kill shelter or no-kill rescue. So I did just want to bring that up because I think it's a little misleading. So now I think you saw our numbers, we were 88% for cats and 87% for dogs. So we do feel that this 90% benchmark is attainable for us in 2024, and we have set that as our goal for this year. But what we feel, we are going one step further. I think you can fall into a way of just placing every animal back out in your community, and you can easily reach that 90%, but we're making sure that we are putting behaviorally and medically sound animals back out into our community, and that we are not, putting animals that are going to spread disease or that are going to go out and bite people. So this is this concept of socially conscious animal sheltering, and it's built on principles of community safety and quality of life for the animal. So that's what we're priding ourselves on, and that's what we're structuring our policies and procedures around. One of the tools that we have used to identify programs that actually need to be happening is what's called a gap analysis. And I read in a book, or somebody told me one time, it got into my brain somehow, if everything is important, then nothing is important. And that's where this gap analysis tool comes into play. So what that allows us to do is to review our data and really dig deeper into it to see what animals are coming into the shelter, how can we support them, what animals are losing their lives at animal services, what can we do to support them. And that's what we have done, and that led us to our first piloted program of this TNR program. And it was incredibly successful. We piloted this program for 6 months, and we saw a decrease in our cat intake by about 24%, and our euthanasia rate for cats decreased by over 700%. Just to put that into perspective, comparing the 2 6-month periods from the year prior, over 330 cats were euthanized in that year, and only 42 cats lost their lives during our pilot program. So not only is that great for cats and also staff morale, but we're also going to be able to see the impacts of that on the community. If you guys will look over at this slide, one cat in 8 years and their offspring can produce over 2 million cats. So us being able to sterilize one cat is going to make a huge impact in the future. So we're hopefully going to have a lot better data kind of as we grow this program. It's been moved to permanency, and so in a few years we should be able to see the impact in the community. But we're already seeing an impact. We do like to think the animals in our shelter and the animals that we're intaking is a direct representation of what's in our community. We have a lot of pit bulls in our shelter because our community actually loves pit bulls, whatever people say, but we do. That's the reason that we have them, is because people have them. Another thing that we were able to identify with our gap analysis was our pet food pantry. So we saw a need for people, they were surrendering due to financial reasons, and this was one of the easier programs that we were able to implement. This is fully donation-based, and struggling families can drop by Burke County Animal Services anytime during our business hours. We didn't want any barriers to people being able to pick up pet food. I think some places will limit the amount of hours that they're handing out pet food, but we just wanted to keep it open because we wanted people to be able to access that. So to date, we have handed out over 6,000 pounds of food, and in a 12-month period, that equated to 778 pets being helped and 172 families. So essentially, some of those animals probably would have ended up in animal services if we weren't able to provide them with some assistance. So I think that's really impactful to know. Animal enforcement. So we are still working on our animal enforcement program. Well, we're still working on all programs. But this was brought under Animal Services in 2020, and they really have been more focused on community education and support rather than just rolling around like the dog catcher and just grabbing up people's dogs and taking them to the shelter. So if you see them out, flag them down, talk to them, make them tell you what they're doing and what they've got going on, because they really do some really great work out there. And I think they just, they still have a negative appearance in the community, and we're really doing our best to change that. Like I said, we did introduce what is called a responsible pet ownership program, and I know that our officers are super excited about being able to speak with people about that program, going out and saying that, you know, you're not quite in compliance with our ordinance, but I have resources to help you. And those are always great conversations to have, especially whenever you follow up 2 weeks later and they've actually reached out for help and we were able to get everybody situated. So they also invest animal cruelty investigations. I know you guys have heard a lot about our animal cruelty investigations, and to date they have assisted 283 animals in hoarding and animal cruelty investigations as well. So we're really proud of the work that they're doing out there. I think one of our most memorable animal cruelty investigations was when we took 49 miniature horses and 39 chickens from a property, or several properties belonging to someone. And I think we ended up with 53 horses overall after we had some little ones being born, and they're all in homes and doing well. We have several here pictured walking with this little girl. Several are now therapy horses, so we're really happy at the direction that those horses went. I don't know if you guys remember this guy, but this is Billy Bob, and we broke the internet one time. But we made a post about this obnoxious Mastiff dog that animal control actually picked up from a former commissioner's house and brought to us, and he was giant. I mean, this is a Mastiff, and he was stinky, and he drooled on you, and he had no idea how to take a treat from you. He would take your whole arm off. But we were featured, in Southern Living magazine, People magazine. We were mentioned on the Drew Barrymore show. That this dog was amazing. He now lives in Glenwood in McDowell County on a farm. He loves chickens, and he sleeps with the chickens every night. So he ended up hitting the jackpot there. So he actually lives locally. We had people from California calling in about this dog wanting to adopt him. So it was a lot of fun. So I've told you guys kind of where we started, where we've been, what we've been working on. Where are we going though? Like, what are we doing? So the only way that I feel like we can properly sum this up is if we're challenging the animal shelter model status quo. We want to go from being a reactive animal shelter model to being very proactive. That's going to bring us into being more of a resource center and just, keep pressing on to these proactive programs. We really want to shift our business model from a transactional business model to a relational. So we don't want people just coming in, doing their business and leaving. We want to cultivate a place where people can come in and enjoy the space that we've provided them, get involved with how they can be a solution. That's what we want to do. We also want to make responsible pet ownership accessible. I think owning a pet can be very expensive. I own several. And if you're caring for them the right way, they can be expensive. And we want to find innovative ways to make sure that people have accessibility to owning pets, because pets aren't going away. As long as people are around, we're going to have them. So that's definitely on our to-do list. And then also, like I said, that's just going to bring us in more as operating as a resource center for our community. So with that, one of the things that we think is going to help us a lot is a new animal shelter, and designs are looking really good to be able to allow us to definitely be more of a relational business model. So that's a beautiful building there. We do have opportunities for folks to volunteer with us. Like I said, if you've never been to Animal Services, our building doesn't accommodate a whole lot of people at once. So I would encourage you to come down, meet with us. We're a really cool group, but we do have opportunities. You can obviously help with the animals, either walking them, feeding them, cleaning them, providing enrichment for them, as well as volunteering with our medical team, so you can learn how to do vaccinations. We do have several people who are interested in the veterinary field. This is a great opportunity to kind of get your foot in the door. If your NAC is working in an office, we can always use you. You can answer the phones, help us at events. Pretty much if you have a talent or a skill and you're wanting to share it with us, we can probably find somewhere for you to go and help out. Just to finish up, we did create a short 2-minute video of our last 5 years, and we wanted to share that with you. So I thought that was pretty impactful and pretty meaningful. So that's what we've been up to for the last 5 years, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Caitlin. Great job. Appreciate all the work that's going on there. Any questions, comments for Caitlin this afternoon?
I couldn't watch that and not say good job. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
The last 5 years have been absolutely amazing for you and for the rest of us. Prior to when I was a chairman before, I laid out a lot of charges to you and to the animal services folks, and you've responded successfully. We get emails, I just got one yesterday saying that we ought to do what Asheville's doing, and said they made some changes to their ordinances. I think, how long have we spent, Kay, 2 years on ordinances? Or a long, long time till we finally came up, I think, with one of the best ordinances in any surrounding county that we got. I looked at this one, says that Asheville wants to make a requirement for all dogs and cats 6 months or older to be spayed or neutered. Well, I don't know how their enforcement's going to find out where they are to make them do that. And then if they can't do it, they get a lifetime $100 fee per animal, which I understand what they're trying to do. I don't know that I totally agree with that and some of the things that are being done. So I guess what I want to do by closing is say what a great job we've done over 5 years. It shows what can happen when people collaborate and when everybody finds a goal that we can all say is a real goal. And we work toward that goal, and it happens. Kay, you wanted to say something?
I was just gonna say, I think we're still working on those ordinances.
We spent a lot
I
of
didn't want to
time
say
on
it.
this. And I told the foundation to raise $1 million, and guess what? They're on their way to it right now. Do you know what your final money spot is now?
Well, it's still in its infancy stages, but you're getting ready to hear more about that here in just a bit.
All right. But again, I want to thank you for everything that you've done. You've made Burke County proud. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Johnny. Any other comments? All right, thank you, Caitlin. Appreciate you being here today. All right, that brings us to item number 4, scheduled public hearings. First one today comes from Community Development, Zoning Map Amendment ZMA 2024-09. This will be brought to us by our Planning Director, Alan Glines. Afternoon, Alan.
Microphone. Thank you all, members of the public. This is the Great Meadows application, an application brought in by Burke Development, Inc. There are 5 tracks. We have them provided in Exhibit A, but the tracks have various current zoning, and they're requesting industrial conditional district 01 for all 5 tracks. It totals 745 acres plus or minus. Take the first map, it shows the general area on the western end of Burke County. Burke County line is almost right there. I put a lot of background in the report because I wanted people to understand that this didn't come about October 11th, 2023, when there was a public announcement of funds, but rather there was a lot of time spent looking at this property over many years for different uses and including industrial development. So in my office, I have a rolled up map of Burke County zoning from 1996. This area was included in that area for industrial use. And a lot of it was because of the focus of the opportunities that come along with I-40 being right there. So that's been part of the focus over the years. Duke provided a study around 2007. I know Burke Development spent a lot of time working on promoting this area and working on funding opportunities. The original rezoning request that came in late last year had over 1,300 acres. We've described that as being right-sized now down to a smaller size tract. Of the 5 tracts, 745 acres. Look at that next slide. This one shows the parcels. Let me get everybody oriented here. This is I-40 right here. This is Dysertsville Road. Comes to an intersection with US 70 right through here. This is Saul Mall Street coming right through here, kind of curving around. And this is the large track on the left on Dysertsville Road, and this is the secondary tracks, all completely wooded. And the photos actually show that there's really nothing to see from the road except for the woods. We'll move ahead with that map. The next map is the current zoning map, and we've numbered them just for the occasion of this report. This is the largest tract, is tract number 1. It's about 550 acres. As you can see, most of the tract is currently zoned industrial. It's about 447 acres, and it's this corner down here that is zoned general business, which is a pretty heavy-duty general broad commercial district in our zoning code. We have 2 smaller tracts, one here and one here right off of the roadway there, and those make up the left side or the west side of Highway 70. The 2 tracts over on the right, a mixture of residential zone and a sort of a mixed-use residential zone in that area. The planned residential mixed use is the light blue category. It's meant for commercial uses and mix of residential uses that would be sort of master planned on a site is what it expects. And the residential 3 is our most flexible zoning category. The parcels here, 4 and 5, do have a scenic overlay for them, and there's a map for that we'll just slide down and we'll look at that next. But scenic overlay, these parcels are, I'm going to orient everybody again. This is I-40 right here. Scenic overlay is just areas around Lake James, and for the most part, they're not lakefront parcels. They're adjacent to or nearby or on the way to the lake. These are the very first 2 parcels in the scenic overlay. And scenic overlay is not a preservation overlay, and it's not a non-development overlay. What it does is, it's not even a tree save overlay. So what it is a overlay to manage uses. So it limits manufacturing uses and some other uses out of that category. And it recommends material use, including masonry, brick, wood, stone, those kinds of things, and a color palette that would be more neutral earth tone. But it doesn't allow commercial uses, shopping centers, grocery stores, housing, that sort of thing. And that would come off with this request. All right, the next map. We've included Exhibit C map. This is a conditional zoning map. Now, conditional zoning, this is the application type that this rezoning application came in under, is conditional zoning. It gives the county the ability to manage certain land uses based on the underlying zoning district, industrial in this case, to manage it with the compatibility in mind for the surrounding area. It has the opportunity to prohibit certain uses that would be more impactful. The current application is considered to be more restrictive than the industrial-based district that they're requesting. And actually, it's more restrictive than any other zoning category we have in Burke County because of the impact buffers that I'll talk about here in just a minute. The specific conditions would stay with the land, the parcels, regardless of who owns that land in the future. The conditions, though, must be agreed to by both the property owner and the Board of Commissioners. So during the time of the application being right-sized and coming back to Burke County, several local environmental groups asked to be involved, and they had ideas about what would make the project more sustainable and protect natural resources and address the concerns that they were hearing from the community. This included the Foothills Conservancy, Catawba River Keeper, Lake James Environmental Association. They provided a list of recommendations that would improve the application. by managing potential environmental impacts. Now, a large component of these recommendations were included in the specific conditions of the rezoning. Now, the environmental organizations, they remain neutral on the rezoning itself, but they feel that these impacts, these things that they requested to manage view shed and stream buffers and property line buffers would be meaningful and would have a positive impact. We did provide a table in the report, and that sort of lays out in a simple fashion some of these requirements and some of these recommendations in the conditional zoning. So a landscape buffer along I-40 proposed at 300 feet. So this is undisturbed trees and shrubs and stuff will be left in place for 300 foot of distance from the property line with I-40. You saw that that was the entire southern property line of that largest tract. Under our current zoning ordinance, we don't have a buffer requirement for this use. We do buffer landscape buffers along Dysertsville Road, along US 70 or Sol Mall Street. They're residentially zoned neighbors. Our zoning code would require a 10-foot buffer of trees and shrubs to be left in place or planted. But in this proposal with conditional zoning, we're proposing 150 feet of buffer to be left on all those neighbors. The other areas, the area against the Snow Hill Church, Presbyterian Church, and also north of that tract, and actually it might be Methodist Church, beg your pardon, and along the west side of the largest tract. Normally that would be a 10-foot buffer as well, and through the conditional zoning request, it's 200 feet. Stream buffers. A standard stream buffer is measured 30 feet from the top of the bank each side. But in this conditional zoning request, we have requested and put in there a 75-foot stream buffer that would not be disturbed at all, and adding another 75 feet to have a total on average of 150 feet both sides of every stream on the property according to that map. Permanent stormwater treatment. Normally there's a 1-inch rain event per the state, and what we're looking for here is permanent retention of 1.5 inches of rain. And this is concurrent with what you'd see on the coast, heavy rains with hurricanes and such. So it's meant to be a higher standard, affecting more, capturing more surface runoffs before it gets into the stream. And then site lighting. Our code would say that you should have downward shielded lighting, but we're looking for full cutoff fixtures, and that means the light bulbs and everything will shine straight down and they won't have trespass out. So it reduces light impacts and dark sky concerns. Now we included the long list here, Exhibit B, conditions for the property itself, and they go with the approval, or they go with the request for rezoning. There are 12 standards there, and along with that, there's under number 10 is a list of industrial uses that would not be permitted now or in the future for this site. Now, as you know, there's no user in place right now for this property. This is developing for the future. But in the future, these uses would not be permitted there. And there's a number of uses that cause concern in the community, and so they'd be left out of future considerations. And then we know that a project like this is going to be large scale, and we want the North Carolina Department of Transportation to be involved to help us with roadways and other improvements so that traffic can be safely managed throughout the area. Okay, move on to the next map, which covers the future land use map. So the future land use map provides a direction about growth trends in the future. And so this area, our parcels here and here, they're showing primarily industrial future land use. Now the little tract here that includes about 17 acres and that little less than an acre piece here, it's just outside of that use, and so those would all come into future land use being industrial. A second request after this report would be a second matter. It concerns these two properties up here that are neighboring but not part of this application, and so there's a separate request for that. But these are the two areas here for future land use. The plan was adopted October 18th, 2022. It was an update from a plan that was developed about 2015. We needed to review it to check out demographics and other changes that had occurred in the 5-year period. Things were looking better for Burke County at the time, including new numbers for housing and such. And also, we wanted to update this future land use map. So that got done in the meeting of 2022. The plan, though, provides lots of other recommendations to cover Burke County in the future. And I won't go over all these, but I'll go over a few highlights for you. Under Section 5, Vision and Goals, it notes that economic and residential growth along key transportation corridors, including US 70, Interstate 40, North Carolina 18, North Carolina 64, and identification of additional industrial and manufacturing sites that can be ready to serve new or existing industrial users. That's called planning ahead. Under Section 7, Burke County strengths, we have a lot of strengths, and it was a lot to note here, but a few I pulled out was we want to remain competitive, and we want a diverse economy here. And so strengthening our diverse, resilient economy is a goal of the plan. We also have a partnership with Western Piedmont Community College for training workers to keep them up to date in their job skills for the future. We also note that Burke County has many natural resources, including a large supply of water, and the Catawba River provides an important drinking source for thousands of residents. In addition to that, we have electric power generation through the Catawba Valley, so we have a lot of resources in this area to utilize to the benefit of Burke County. We also note that manufacturing and warehousing are important today and also for modern facilities in the future. The existing districts, we note that the industrial district is established as a district where the principal land use is for industrial and warehousing uses, which normally seek large tracts of land, where the operations involved do not detract from the development potential of nearby undeveloped properties. So it is noted in the plan that industrial district might be eligible for voluntary parallel conditional zoning. That's what we have today. Other goals, economic development will occur where there is sufficient population and infrastructure. That means road access, water, sewer, and power to support it. In Burke County, most of economic growth will occur following the I-40 corridor and close to our towns. Exactly what this property is. This is exactly the type of property we're talking about here. Quite a few other notes for the future, but in general, the parcels included in the rezoning have access to both I-40 and US 70 West. And this is one of those key reasons why it's been looked at for all these decades, is that major transportation routes across Burke County. In addition to that, the city of Morganton will be able to provide both water and sewer service to these tracts, utilizing the capacity provided in their permits already approved by the state. And Duke Energy will be able to serve the site with electric power. The size of the parcels, along with their access to infrastructure, makes them good candidates for industrial use. For the bulk of the properties that are included in this conditional zoning request, the Blueprint Burke Strategic Land Use Plan puts them in that industrial land use category already. I just noted that those two small ones at the very end of at I-40 need to be added to that, the future land use map, to be industrial. Now, the Burke, planning board, we had a review a few weeks back to hear this rezoning request. We presented a similar report to the board. We had a very lively discussion with lots of input from folks who came out to share their opinion about this rezoning request. There were a number of motions and resets to that motion. At the end of it, the board voted 4-1 to recommend approval. It was 3 affirmative, 1 against, and 1 abstained, which actually in Robert's Rules of Order counts as an affirmative vote. So we bring it to you today for the meeting later this month with a 4-1 vote from the BOC. From the planning board. I can answer any questions for you.
Right, thank you, Alan. Gentlemen, we've heard this information. Any questions for Alan this afternoon?
Can we go back to the future land use map, please. Did that. Alan, put your pointer on Muddy Creek for me, please. How far is that from that property?
It's got to be several hundred feet. If we went back to the conditions map, we might be able to see how far, because I can tell you what that distance is. So Muddy Creek, this is the same tract of land. This is Muddy Creek, and that is measured at 200 feet. And so we've got to be probably 200 feet there undisturbed. Is that 500 feet to the creek at the closest?
How did Muddy Creek get its name?
I have no idea.
No clue?
Well, I guess it gets muddy when it rains.
Did you say that 75% of the time that creek's muddy? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't.
I would suggest to you that it is. What's the water used for out of Muddy Creek?
It flows into the Catawba stem.
How far away?
Well, it's just off the map, I'd say, or maybe just at the top of the map. So Muddy Creek flows this way, and it joins the Catawba stem right in this area as it reaches, the Catawba River out here.
Is that the Catawba River or Catawba Stem?
That's the Catawba stem,
Not the river.
not the river.
Okay. What does the stem do?
Well, it's the old flow, I guess before the dam was built up there, in the McDowell side, coming through that way.
Talk about topography for a minute. The Great Lakes industrial site that's proposed, is Lake James higher or lower than that property?
They're a similar elevation, I believe, but they're several miles apart.
Several?
Yeah.
3?
I think it's about 2 miles or so from probably here, making your way up, and then up to the lake is up here. But they actually are fairly similar in height. I haven't checked it all out. I do know, because we were studying this property here, this is about 200 feet below the land area right through here. At Snow Hill Church Road and that large tract there. There's parts that are quite high and that falls down precipitously down to the Catawba, the waterway down the bottom.
It's most of the properties in that area on wells.
I believe that's the case, yeah.
So Muddy Creek, the muddy water just flows into that part of the so-called Catawba River, right?
Yeah, the old stem of
Is
the
it
Catawba
used for
River.
anything? Recreation?
Do I what?
Is Muddy Creek used for recreation or anything else?
There is a boat launch. Now, I will say this, the state has a facility right in here.
Boat or kayak?
It's canoe, kayak. Yeah.
Kayak.
Yes.
Not a big boat.
No, it's very small.
How big's the creek?
Let's see, I was there, I would say it's between me, from the distance where I am to that wall is probably the width of the stream, and it's maybe several feet deep.
Okay. That's all I have right now.
Other question, comment?
Alan, you commented that all of this property is currently standing timber.
Yes, sir.
Am I to understand correctly that all that timber was planted for harvest?
I'm sure the bulk of it was planted for harvest, yes.
But it's not generational timber, it's not pristine.
Right. Folks have called me through the past year to say they recall, they're about my age, they recall when they were young people that the fields were wide open and that they were planted around that time. So maybe in the 30, 35-year time frame, they were planted or came back plantation pine style. So it's not an old growth forest area. It's not that kind of land.
Okay, thank you.
Another question, comment? All right, Alan, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. Item number 2 in public hearings also comes from Community Development, ZTA 2024-02. Adjust the future land use map 2 parcels, and this will be presented by Alan as well.
Okay, so this is related tangentially from just the prior request. This came from the planning board, though. And when they were reviewing the request for conditional zoning, they were looking at the future land use map for the 2 tracts of land that are shown on the next graphic here. There we are. So it's the parcel here and a parcel right here. And this is Snow Hill Church Road. This is US 70. And then this is Muddy Creek is flowing this way, and this is the bottom side is railroad track and wetlands, and that's the large track that falls about 200 feet from Snow Hill Church Road down to the bottom there. I was trying to count contour lines. We've got 2 tracks. One's 193 acres, and the other is 78. What they're requesting with the planning board is that we adjust, that the future land use map be adjusted. Now, it's not saying what's going to happen next week or anything. It's not zoning, but it's future direction. The current zoning out there is that PRMU, planned residential mixed use, and an R3 zone next door. So they're asking that be adjusted for those 2 tracks to be residential infill, which does permit just a different range of residential development at a future date that is more compatible with the PRMU that is zoned in that area. Those 2 tracks are also, we can slide that map up, please. This is what would be proposed or changed, how it would look. Those 2 parcels are under that scenic overlay, so that also falls in that area. We had looked at the map before, and a portion of that largest tract is under lake overlay, which affects Lake James and riverine areas for Old Catawba Stem heading into Catawba River, first 250 feet. So nothing would ever develop like that on that track, but it still applies to that track today. It was placed there quite some time ago. But the thinking of the planning board was, let's see, the planning board felt like the tracks are not suitable for industrial or manufacturing purposes and suggests that lighter, less impactful residential land uses would be more appropriate, aligning with that current zoning in place for those 2 tracks. And that's their request. As you know, the planning board is empowered to sort of look ahead and think of other things, and they bring that request to you all, and they brought it at that meeting. So I can answer any questions for that if you like. That was part of that motion that was approving the other rezoning requests.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Any questions on this matter? Did the applicant have, well, there was no applicant, but this was a planning board initiated, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Questions, comments? All right, seeing here none, this item will remain on the agenda. Thank you, Alan. This will bring us to item number 5, consent agenda. The first item on the consent agenda is NCDVRS, National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And this will be presented by our friends from Vocational Rehabilitation. I believe there's a new name, but I would not dare to try to go there right now on my own. I'll let you guys give us that. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much for having us and allowing us for being here today. My name is Janet Hanna, and I am a business relations representative with EIPD. And I want to introduce ourselves, and we'll explain EIPD.
Hi, I'm Amy Carlton. I'm a business relations representative with EIPD also. I do serve the deaf and hard of hearing caseload.
My name is Shelley Cash. I'm also a business relations representative, and I serve the youth, the transition caseload.
And I'm Sasha Prebor. I'm the facility director at WorkSource West EIPD, formerly known as Vocational Rehabilitation. For people with disabilities, employment can provide independence, dignity, and the chance to contribute to their community. Here in North Carolina, we're breaking down barriers and promoting inclusion in the workforce. Through initiatives like vocational rehabilitation services and job training programs, we equip individuals with disabilities with the skills and support they need to succeed. Our division's vocational rehabilitation work has been an integral part of employment and inclusion in our state for the past 100 years. Over the last couple months, we've gone through a transition from the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation to the Division of Employment and Independence for People with Disabilities, opening an exciting new chapter in the way we understand and describe the services the department has provided to over 35,000 North Carolinians. Our stakeholders chose a name that reflects exactly what our goals are: employment and independence for people with disabilities, clearly stated and clearly empowering. And this spring, Commissioner Britton, and we were honored to have Mayor Pro Tem Wendy Cato come. Our office hosted a name change event. So we want to thank you. So you're going to start hearing not vocational rehabilitation, but EIPD. So we wanted to share that information today when we come to you to ask some other things.
Thank you very much. So with our name change comes a national event that happens during the month of October, and we are asking for a proclamation. We shorten it called to DEAM, which is the National Disability Employment and Awareness Month, which is celebrated throughout the entire month of October. The purpose of NDEAM is to educate about disability employment issues and celebrate the many and varied contributions of Americans with disabilities. So this year we have a theme, and our theme is good jobs.
Access to good jobs for all.
We have lots of changes in acronyms, so please forgive us. So we would like to ask for y'all to sign our proclamation to make the month of October National Employment, Disability, and Awareness Month.
All right, thank you very much, ladies. This does mark the 79th anniversary. Any questions on this proclamation that's before you? All right, no questions, no comments. We'll leave that on our consent agenda. Thank you very much for being here today. Appreciate it. Item number 2 comes from BSAM, proclamation for National Recovery Month. This will be presented by Tracy Hall from Burke Substance Abuse Network. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'd like to say it was an honor and pleasure to get to attend Commissioner Carswell's One More Thing initiative at the state convention. It was a job well done. September is National Recovery Month, and it started in 1989 as a national observance held every September to promote and support new evidence-based treatment and recovery practices, the nation's strong and proud recovery community, and the dedication of service providers and communities who make recovery in all forms possible. So we come today to ask for a proclamation proclaiming September 2024 as a National Recovery Month in Burke County, whereas behavioral health is an essential part of health and one's overall wellness, and whereas according to recent survey results, the average age of first use in Burke County is 12.5. Therefore, prevention of mental and/or substance use disorder as well as treatment is necessary and effective. People do recover, and in our area and around the nation. And whereas overdose rates in Burke County appear to be decreasing due to continued prevention and intervention efforts, and whereas preventing and overcoming substance use disorder is essential to achieving healthy lifestyles, both physical and emotional. And whereas we must educate relatives and friends of people with substance use disorders so that they will be able to implement preventative measures, recognize the signs of a problem, and guide those in need to appropriate treatment and recovery support services. Whereas substance use disorder is a major public health problem that impacts society on multiple levels, and whereas the use of fentanyl and other dangerous opioids, as well as other substances that are being laced with the dangerous opioid, is rising in our community, leading to the overdose and death. And whereas underage drinking and failure to properly store alcohol in the home continues to lead teenagers to having a low perception of risk, And whereas to help more people achieve and sustain long-term recovery, Burke Substance Abuse Network invites Burke County residents to participate in activities held to recognize National Recovery Month.
All right, thank you, Tracy. Any questions on this proclamation?
I don't have a question, sir, but I think if you read the one line that says that the average age of first use for a child in Burke County is 12 and a half years old. If that don't scare the bejeepers out of me, I don't know what does. That's just unreal.
Any other comment or question? All right, Tracy, thank you for being here. Without objection, this item will remain on our agenda.
Thank you, and I'd like to invite everyone to the Recovery Rally on September the 14th.
All right, thank you. Where will that be?
Courthouse Square.
Courthouse Square. Thank you very much. All right, gentlemen, our next item on the consent agenda is resolution to support Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I'll call your attention to that resolution. I won't take time to read the entire resolution, but I did learn something about cancer this month. A friend of mine is going through bile duct cancer, and he shared with us a green ribbon. And maybe all of you already know this, but there's some 14, 15 different colored ribbons representing different cancers. And so this month we are, of course, focused on breast cancer. And any questions about this resolution? All right, seeing here none, this item will remain on our consent agenda. Thank you very much. Item number 4 comes from the clerk, removal of Board of Health Advisory member due to employment change and resignation. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request to remove Barry Nelson's name from the roster for the Board of Health Advisory Board. He resigned on August 7th from the hospital and the Board of Health Advisory Board.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any questions on this item? Hearing none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 5 comes from the Fire Marshal. Proclamation of Fire Prevention Week, October 6th through the 12th. This comes from, well, that doesn't look like Mike, so tell us all about it.
Good afternoon. From the Fire Marshal's office, we would like to ask for a proclamation for Fire Prevention Week, which is October 6th through October 12th this year.
All right, gentlemen, you got the proclamation in front of you. Any questions on the Fire Prevention Week proclamation? Seeing here none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Thank you very much for being with us this afternoon. Item number 6 comes from the Tax Department. Gentlemen, I'll note that you've got a handout on this item. John will come forward and present this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. During the month of August, year-to-date, we collected $30,188,847.83. That is 55.10% of the budgeted amount, with a balance to collect of $24,604,331.17. Motor vehicle tax, we have collected $1,777.17. That is 19.73% of the budget amount, with a balance to collect for the year of $4,074,466.83. Current year taxes, we've collected $31,190,625 even. That is 52.10% of the budget amount, with a balance to collect of $28,678,798 even. For delinquent taxes, we have collected $200,410.93. That is 28.63% of the budget amount, with a balance to collect of $499,589.07. For penalties and interest, we have collected $67,556.81. That is 20.53% of the budget amount, with a balance to collect of $261,443.19. For the overall levy, we have, levy is $53,434,062.53, and we've collected $30,188,847.83. That is 56.50% of the budget amount, with a balance to collect of $23,245,214.70.
All right, thank you, John. Gentlemen, you've heard the tax collection report. Any questions for August 2024? All right, seeing here none, this item will remain on consent agenda. John, if you will carry on with the release refund report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The overall report is $468,845.19. Of that was rebilled $281,832.84, with a net release of $187,012.35 with no refunds. And there were no refunds of over $100 for the motor vehicle tax.
Kind of unusual, wasn't it?
Excuse me?
A little unusual, wasn't it?
It was. I was surprised at that.
Any question on this item? Seeing here none, this item will remain on consent agenda. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Item number 8 comes from the county manager, budget amendment number 2, for $25,000. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Several proceeding budget amendments. Would you like me to work through those or take them one at a time?
That'll be fine. You can just go through them all and we'll act at one time.
Yes, sir. The first item for consideration, budget amendment number 2 on the year, is a request to budget $25,000 in a public safety grant. 2 specific functions, both through emergency management. One is a tier 2 grant for $10,000. The other is a $15,000 grant for an emergency swift water and flood exercise response that we do annually. Those together are the $25,000. I would point out, Mike is here to speak to it if the board has questions, but the $15,000 for the swift water exercise is actually substantially less than we've got in the past. So we're exploring ways to maximize that output with a little bit of reduction in that annual grant. Item 9, budget amendment number 3 on the year, is another Department of Public Safety grant. And this is to help facilitate emergency backup power at Foothills Higher Education Center in the event that it needed to be used as an emergency operations center. The request to be budgeted is $107,000, again, Department of Public Safety grant. Item number 10, which is budget amendment number 4. As you're all aware, we are working through the America 250, Burke County 250 celebration. We're partnering with the Historical Society, the Burke Historical Society, and in partnership have applied for and been awarded a $10,000 grant from the North Carolina Department of Cultural Resources. So we're asking to budget that, and then simultaneously that will flow through the county to the Historical Society for their planning purposes. Item number 11, which is budget amendment number 5, is request to budget $169,249, all from the Department of Public Health at the state level. $50,000 of those funds will flow through to Burke County Public Schools to help offset cost of public health nurses. And then there's 3 additional carry forward COVID grants for various clinical purposes that you all can see there in education, advertising, and a variety of other COVID-related initiatives. Budget amendment number 6, which is item 12 on your agenda, is to budget $252,605. This is another North Carolina Department of Public Safety grant. It was applied for in connection with the Public Health Department to introduce medicated assisted treatment in the jail. And I know this has been a priority for the board for some time. It's my understanding that the clinical provider has agreed to deliver this as part of their original contract, so this will all be applied toward the medical clinical need. And then finally, for consideration, budget amendment number 7, which is a direct state grant to the county, a SCIF funds of $2,714. We're asking to budget that along with an equal county match for the Register of Deeds office, and that'll be earmarked towards historic record, vital record preservation and digitization, which I know is a major goal of the Register's office to prevent the handling of those historical vital records. And that completes the proposed budget amendments. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Manager. Any questions on any of these budget amendments from anybody? Seeing here none, all the budget amendments mentioned will be carried through on the consent agenda. Item number 14 comes from County Manager, Harbor Grant Modification Request.
Thank you, sir. I know the board's well aware of the Harbor Grant, which started as a lead grant all the way back in 2019, originally a $600,000 federal allocation that's been extended one time due to COVID. That is set to expire in about 27 days at the end of this month. Two critical components of that grant that we're asking for a 30-day extension for a cost not to exceed $12,000. One is drug court. The other is the coordinator that's associated with the Harbor Grant. It requires the board's authorization, but that would give us through the end of October so that we could work on a more sustainable long-term plan for those two items.
All right, thank you, Mr. Manager. Any question on this 30-day extension of the Harbor Grant? All right, seeing here none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Several items for decision to consider. First one comes from ASFI, resolution supporting a capital fundraising campaign for the new animal service shelter and naming policy. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I am the president of the Animal Services Foundation, a nonprofit agency that was created to support Burke County's animal shelter. And I'm pleased to say we have a resolution and a naming policy in your packet for your consideration. As you know, the shelter is out for bids, and it's our plan to accept donations to name the shelter and/or specific areas and rooms in the shelter. This campaign is a unique legacy moment, a chance to honor a loved one or a cherished pet, and to be a part of what I think is the most significant impact on animal welfare that Burke County has seen in its history, second only to the creation of the Animal Services Department. As indicated in the naming policy, the commissioners will make the final decision on the names, and so I'm asking that you consider approving the resolution and the policy. And if folks, when we kick it off, which will be in early October, if pet owners, non-pet owners, whoever want to contribute to this cause, and I believe they will, that they can do so on our website at burkecountyanimalservicesfoundation.com with PayPal or a credit card, or they can mail a check to ASFI, Post Office Box 52 in Morganton. I'd be happy to try to entertain any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Any questions on this item? We have a resolution and a naming policy. Only question or concern that I have, Madam Clerk and Commissioners, is the naming of the shelter itself, and this may just be a personal thing. I'm just a little bit skittish of naming facilities, whether it be schools or whatever, names that aren't associated with the specific owner or location or that kind of thing. So I guess I would like to kind of reserve the Burke County Animal Services as the name for the building, but there may be some other way to do something with that, but that's my opinion. There's 5 of us. So. Any other opinions on that matter?
I think in the lead of the name, it could be Burke County Animal Services, but then a subtitle or a sub of some kind.
And of course, anything that any name in the right situation you've got put in here, they've got to meet a lot of requirements. And so there has to be an agreement between the county manager and animal services director. And so there's a lot of protections in place. I don't really have a beef on it. I would say Burke County, but if it's sponsored by whatever, Purina, or write a $500,000 check.
Or more, if that's too low. But happy to, you guys get final say, so.
And so we'll still always retain
I hope
control.
we have that problem.
Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing no other questions or comments, this item will remain on for decision. Thank
If
you,
I
Madam
could
Clerk.
just tell you a quick story about Janet Hanna. She and I share a love of paper crafting and animals. And Janet is one of the ladies that comes twice a year to an event that our nonprofit hosts. It's called Scrapping for Paws. It's a scrapbook crop fundraiser to benefit the shelter. And she and 45 to 50 other ladies come twice a year. They're from Burke County, they're from South Carolina, they're everywhere. And they have been coming to those events twice a year since 2021. And I think that's how we approach a lot of our fundraising, is through events that people like to spend their discretionary dollars on anyway. But I think it's a great tribute of our community support and something that's been going on. And I just wanted to give them a shout out since Janet was here.
Very good. Any other questions, comments? Appreciate all the work the Animal Services Foundation is doing. It's a great group of folks and doing a lot for our animal services. So thank you very much. All right, item number 2 comes from County Manager, MOU for partnership with Hickory to construct a new airplane hangar at the Hickory Regional Airport. This is not a new concept. We've been working on these for a couple rounds now. So, Mr. Manager, tell us what's new.
So thank you for that, and I agree. A long-standing, well-executed strategy to build personal property tax base. As you all aware, the airport in Hickory is largely in Burke County. That means when folks park their aircraft there, it resides on the Burke County tax books, which is a good thing. And this partnership with the city of Hickory essentially is designed so that the city provides the capital needed to build hangars, and now T-hangars, that provides a place for people to park their aircraft. In return for that, as the tax base grows and as tax revenue comes in, we provide 50% of that back to the city to help them offset their startup costs. In the beginning, it was debt. They're getting to the point now with their cash flow and some of these things. So it's working really well. To put it in perspective, in 2020, the tax base, personal property tax base on that airport was a little over $37 million. Now we're a tick over $110 million. So I think that's very innovative economic development that reduces the taxing burden on the rest of our citizens. It helps fund local government in a way that's really working well. The city and our office have been working. There's many more of these planned. You all have been out on site and seen the runway extensions that are taking, where the T-hangars are being built down. What we've ran into is a little bit of an administrative area for improvement, where right now, every new facility that's built requires a new agreement. What we're proposing is the bones of the agreement are exactly the same, so 99% of it's the same, but the measurement of the grant and payback would be one agreement in perpetuity that keeps a tax-based investment of about $98 million. And then we measure what's called net new investment annually, January 1st after that. So in essence, every time that we start a new project, we don't have to do a new agreement. And then when it's time to remit payment to the city for 50% of the NNI, we're not reconciling which airplane was parked in which hangar and which agreement is associated with that. It becomes really a challenging reconciliation for both sides. The city is on board with this. We have a proposed MOU. It's essentially exactly what you've seen in the past with a few revisions, as I mentioned. The county attorney is finalizing some of those details, but we will have that prepared and ready to go well ahead of your meeting in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions on this item? All right, hearing none, this item will remain on the decision agenda. Item number 3, clerk appointments, reappointments to the Burke County Board of Adjustment. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request to make some appointments and/or reappointments to the Burke County Board of Adjustment. September 30th is the term expiration date for seats 2, which represents the East, and seat 7, alternate at large. Tommy Craig occupies seat number 2. He desires reappointment. Mr. Mario Cichetti occupies seat number 7, but he is not seeking reappointment. Further, seat number 4, representing the West, is vacant. We have several applications on file, so if any more come in, we'll certainly add those and update this agenda item, but we won't be looking to make a reappointment or an appointment to seat number 2. To make an appointment to seat number 4, to remove Mr. Cichetti's name and thank him for his service to the community, and then fill seat number 7, the at-large alternate. Be happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So we do have an existing member seeking reappointment, and we have 3 new members, 1 seeking appointment to the East seat specifically, I suppose. And then the 2 West seats, could one of those also serve as or any of the 3 that might not receive the East vote, could they all serve as the at-large?
Yes.
So we should be able to fill all 3 of these seats. So, gentlemen, roll that around between now and then and think about how we can vote on those seats, okay? Any other question, comment? All right, thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
All right, item number 4 comes from the County Manager's Office, Public Safety Radio and Purchase and Budget Amendment. This is going to be presented by Hugh Sando, Budget Strategy and Performance Analyst. Afternoon, Hugh.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Board. This agenda item is regarding the ongoing purchase planning that we've been doing for our fleet management with our radios. As you're aware, we've been working for some time on a bulk purchase agreement to negotiate substantial cost savings both for Burke County and for some of our local fire departments. Due to some contractual difficulties with Motorola in the past, we were able to negotiate a credit for the purchase of radios of about $500,000. In addition to that, we combined that with some negotiated funding through the state SCIF funds to these fire departments to really have a substantial influx of capital that we can use to increase our purchasing power. I will have a full PowerPoint for you in 2 weeks, but the purchase of this item really is to both identify and reconcile the additional revenue that we will be getting from Motorola and from the fire departments that we're working with, and to enter into these legal agreements that will allow us to purchase on their behalf. As you may be aware, our radio fleet is very large, consisting of radios for the Sheriff's Office, 911, Emergency Management, and our Fire Marshal, who's here today. Many of those assets date back to 2007, with the average lifespan being between 5 and 7 years. So we have a significant need to very quickly begin a restarted process of having an upfront infusion of some new equipment so that in the future we can have a more sustained annual reinvestment and cycling of that fleet program. So this grant funding will allow us to do that. And we're also going to be partnering with the City of Morganton, as I said, and a few other fire departments to really identify some substantial savings. So this total contract is going to save all the entities involved about $1.2 million, again, as a result of this service credit that we've received and some bulk purchase negotiating. And so really the recommendation will be at the upcoming meeting to approve this budget amendment, which is going to recognize all that new revenue and recognize some other grant funding that's going to go through 911 fund for their radios, and then budget that out to be able to make this purchase. And I'll have a full PowerPoint for you at the next meeting with a few more details. But I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you. Any questions on this item?
Did all of the fire departments contribute money?
All of the fire departments that are going to be purchasing have, yes. And so we have an individual agreement with each one that spells out the equipment they're getting, because they could purchase, whatever equipment they wanted, and then how much they will be contributing to Burke County that will be recognized as revenue to purchase on their behalf, and then we will distribute the equipment to them once it gets received.
I think there were 6, is that right? 6 actual fire?
There's 4, and then the City of Morganton as well.
Or does the smaller fire departments have the radios they need?
So we worked, the fire marshal worked with all the fire departments to give everybody an opportunity. I'm sure some of them would probably choose to have more, but again, that's based on their funding and what resources they had to contribute. But all of them were given multiple opportunities to join in this bulk purchase, which is saving about 30%.
Giving an opportunity, you told them how much the radio would cost, and they either said yay or nay, right?
Right.
Okay.
It's also worth noting, many of the fire departments have switched away from Motorola to a Kenwood or another brand, and that precluded them from, or maybe they're in good shape. I'm not sure everybody was in as desperate of a situation as Burke County was.
Other questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. This item will remain on the decision. I have 2 reports to hear this afternoon. First one comes from the Health Department, Opioid Settlement Annual Impact Report, and this will be presented by Katie Barnett. Afternoon, Katie.
Hey, good afternoon, Commissioners. I am standing here before you with a little over a year of tenure. It's been a year as of the end of June that I came here to work for you as your opioid settlement coordinator. And during that time, we've set forth several projects underway. And this anniversary of mine also corresponds with the annual report that's due to report on our opioid settlement expenditures. That's due 90 days from the end of the fiscal year, which would be September 27th of this year. So my purpose of reporting to you today is to tell you about the impact that we've made in the last year, and also to give you an idea of where we are as it relates to opioid use disorder in the county. So this is these are key indicators that are on the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services dashboard. So over the past year, we've started trying to really dive into what does the local data look like in more real time than how it's being reported at the state. So in one of my earliest presentations to you, Commissioner Burns, you asked me the percentage and what that equates to. So we're looking at translating that into whole numbers and then in more real time so that we really have our finger on the pulse of what is happening here and how we can set forth interventions to prevent overdose occurrences and fatalities. So if you see 40 certified overdose fatalities in 2023, it's actually more than that. We've had more death certificates certified since I made this report a month ago. And so what's happening is on the NCDHHS website, we have a number from 2022 for certified overdose fatalities. So we're looking at 2 years behind. So what we've been doing at the health department is examining the death certificates as they come in, so we can flag all of the pending or suspected overdose fatalities and then track them through the state system, so that when they're certified, we have real-time data on the overdose fatalities in the area. So in 2022, we had 40 certified overdose fatalities. Last month, we already had 40 in 2023, with more that were being certified. So we're also seeing an average of 1 overdose call per day to EMS, and this is lining up also with the 911 system data. Year to date, there were around 250 overdose calls that came through telecommunications. 60% of the jail population has a history of substance use charges. So this was from a report of the census in jail at the time, where we looked at their past charges, and on that particular day, there were 93 individuals incarcerated, and 59 of them had a history of substance use related charges. As of 2021, on the DHHS website, there were 177 kids in the foster system due to parental substance use. And we have consistently been in the top 10 in the state for ED visits due to overdose. So on this slide, we have partnered with our community paramedicine team to look at heat maps for their overdose calls. And so this is a distribution of calls, and what you can see if you look closely at the map is that the majority of overdoses are happening along the I-40 corridor. So also from EMS's biospatial data, they're able to pull their suspected overdoses, fatalities, and then the distribution of demographics between male, female, and the age range. So at the time of this report, there were 734 suspected overdoses, 13 fatalities in 2024, slightly more males than females, and the age range was between 20 and 69. So we have seen a significant decrease in the overdose presentations at the emergency department. So what this indicates to us is that our harm reduction efforts are working, where we're getting naloxone out in the community. People are using naloxone to reverse overdoses, and they may not be going to the emergency department. So while our harm reduction efforts are working, that tells us that we need to start looking at developing the treatment options to get people into treatment, so that we can start seeing those overdose calls and trends start to go down. So you all approved 6 strategies last year. The Collaborative Strategic Planning Opioid Settlement Coordinator would be myself. Naloxone distribution, qualitative data collection, videography project, the strategic plan and evaluation development, overdose fatality review, public health and safety team, and peers partnering for excellence, for a total of approved expenditures of $436,500 through June of 2025. The actual amount that we've spent since 2022 is around $153,000, leaving a remaining fund balance through fiscal year 24 of a little over $5 million. So on the North Carolina opioid settlement, they call it NC Core, you can look at all of the spending plans across the state, and you can see for Burke County, we have 6 approved strategies and the total amount of those strategies. So for my specific strategy, and I apologize that the slides are a little bit cluttered or busy here, but I wanted to go through and give you an idea of the work that I've been doing for the past year. And that the bulk of that is coordinating our opioid settlement work group, which was made of members recommended in the North Carolina Memorandum of Agreement for the collaborative strategic planning process. And so that group has actually been meeting since 2019. And over the last year, we have identified 5 trending priorities that we consistently talked about in those meetings. And those were supporting treatment services and capacity, workforce development, prioritizing the local data so that we have real-time information, a faith and healing partnership, and justice-involved systems. So we were able to pull those priorities into work groups to bring subject matter experts in to work with our stakeholders like the sheriff and community paramedicine to start developing recommendations that would address those trending priorities. And so last year, I was able to bring forward 2 resolutions to you that included the 5 remaining strategies. And then we also held our annual community meeting in May of 2024. So the project management work that I'm involved in is developing the RFQs and the RFPs based on the strategic priorities that you all approve. And then once those applications are received, the opioid settlement work group then tabulates them, and we've chosen vendors in that manner. One of which was the Fletcher Group for our Western Regional Partnership, and then Community Education Group to develop our strategic plan for long-term opioid settlement expenditures. The last one is the Qualitative Data Collection Videography Project, where we interviewed individuals with lived experience to ask them about their experience and for feedback that we can incorporate into our strategic plan. We also are NC STAR partners with MAHEC, and we have technical assistance from the MAHEC team in partnership with UNC Health Blue Ridge to develop treatment and especially around MAT, and develop a network of treatment providers using best practices that they assist us with. So we also had 2 BJA grants, one of which has expired, and the other is the Harbor Lead program that we were able to incorporate Recovery Court into. In this past fall, we applied for 2 Recovery Court grants, one through SAMHSA and one through BJA. And we've also applied for other funding in collaboration with the grant manager. One in particular that you guys heard about earlier is the MAT grant for incarcerated individuals. So the second strategy is naloxone distribution. And you can see here when we approved this strategy, we took the $10,000 and we also kept asking for more funding and support around naloxone so that we could truly saturate the community with naloxone. So you can see we have grant funding. We had a donation from Indivior, the representative that makes another version of naloxone. State has donated naloxone to us, and opioid settlement. So if you add all that together, we've had a total investment of over $50,000 in naloxone. And this is the distribution across the different agencies that have received naloxone. So the bulk of this right now is individual. Since this report also, Brandy has trained 12 schools with almost 300 school personnel being trained and receiving naloxone. Also a big part of our naloxone trainings are with law enforcement and fire departments, and it's not unusual for us to be making naloxone deliveries like on our way home and getting that out to individuals as well as our volunteer fire departments and other agencies that are in need of it. The third strategy is the Qualitative Data Videography Project. We've interviewed 8 individuals, asking them about their experience seeking treatment, what works for them in recovery, and sharing stories of hope so that we can start spreading that message that people can get into recovery and also learn what needs to happen to support people in their recovery journey. Strategy 4 is our strategic plan that we are contracting with Community Education Group for. They have just started their engagement work with the plan of finishing the strategic plan around February so that any recommendations that come from it to unlock Exhibit B of the North Carolina MOA will follow along the same lines as the budget season. So everything should line up nicely with the budget retreats and presentation for you to hear their recommendations for long-term opioid settlement expenditures. The Overdose Fatality Review Public Health and Safety Team, this is the first OFR FAST in the state and the second OFR. We are making progress toward developing the FAST dashboard, which includes those key indicators. We've also brought in law enforcement partners to talk about not only harm reduction and naloxone efforts, but also drug seizures and what the data is that we're seeing in the community, what substances are available, what they're seeing as they're arresting individuals, and then working with them on programs like LEAD and Recovery Court. And then the last strategy is, the fifth strategy is Peers Partnering for Excellence. This is our coalition of peer support specialists. We have started aligning with Caldwell County and their peer support specialists that work with the RESET program to start building what this coalition looks like as far as advancing the field of peer support and getting more peer support specialists trained and active in Burke County and Caldwell County. And then finally, our Western Regional Partnership Development. This is actually funded through a Dogwood grant, but I wanted to give you all an update because this grant was originally designed to form a partnership for the establishment of a long-term treatment facility. And so we adjusted slightly to still build the partnership and identify the gaps and needs where we can work together across county lines to address things like long-term treatment, unsheltered populations, and workforce development. So the Fletcher Group has been facilitating these meetings, and we've had a great response from 11 counties that want to partner and work on these issues together. And so this next year, our goals and priorities are centered around those trends that we identified from the Opioid Settlement Work Group. We want to support treatment. So again, what we're seeing is that harm reduction efforts are working, and we're getting people naloxone and we're engaging with them. And the next step in that is to grow our treatment and provider network so that they have the support that they need when they are ready to go into treatment. And then this also supports the other work that we're doing around the justice-involved individuals as we're supporting these different programs like Burke Recovery Court, LEAD, and reentry services. These individuals still need to have community supports to be able to access in the community for treatment services. The Faith and Healing Partnership, we identified a huge opportunity in partnering with the faith community. We have a lot of outreach for naloxone, and so we wanted to take to seize that opportunity and work with our churches to help them with naloxone training, getting them naloxone, and also supporting their initiatives as they are in turn supporting their congregations. Workforce development. Healthcare was a critical gap in workforce in the county, particularly around behavioral health. The Justice Involved Continuum, which includes the jail MAT program and ensuring that there are community supports and follow-up from that program, and then prioritizing the local data so that we have a true understanding of what's happening here, and we're not pulling data down to see what's happening. We're actually pushing it up and saying, this is what's happening here. And that's all I have for you, gentlemen, if you have any questions.
All right, thank you, Katie. Gentlemen, any questions for Katie on this impact report?
Just one quick question. I remember this study came out, or I guess you could call it a study, the coming demographic drought. And in that study, it talked about the number of prime-aged males, particularly what was in that had been taken out of the workforce due to the opioid epidemic. And I was curious if any of your strategies are touching on the opportunity youth demographic or those who are displaced from the workplace because of the opioid crisis.
So we are seeing, reviewing the death certificates, that the majority of individuals we're reviewing had manufacturing jobs. So looking at interventions and partnering with the manufacturing organizations to get them naloxone and treatment resources to engage people there, and also working with Industrial Commons for the Opportunity Youth and other programs like peer support to get people like a pipeline into the workforce.
So Katie, it looks like in the coming year, you're going to be headed more towards intervention.
Yeah.
Do you have any early thoughts as to what direction that may be headed, or how are we gonna, where's the rubber gonna hit the road?
I think the priority is going to have to be in building the treatment provider infrastructure. So over the past 5 years or more, we've seen providers leave Burke County, but we haven't seen a lot of influx of providers in the county. And a lot of the programs that we're supporting through grant funding, we're actually having to send people out of the county for treatment. So especially if we're looking at building a long-term model here, we have to build that treatment infrastructure that includes the continuum of care. So we have some outpatient, we have some MAT, but we're missing some of the elements that ASAM requires, especially for programs like Recovery Court. So building that treatment network is going to have to be a priority.
Other questions, comments? All right, hearing none, this item will remain as a report at our next meeting.
Thank you.
County manager presentation of the year-end report. This is a placeholder. Any comments, Mr. Manager?
Yes, sir, I'll be very brief. As you're aware, our fiscal year ended June 30th, so we're approaching 75 days or so, approaching that 90-day mark at the end of September from the end of our fiscal year. Staff in the finance office and budget management office have been working on preparing your annual comprehensive financial report. Be prepared to present that in 2 weeks, and I think we'll be pleased with where we've landed. We've had another successful year. Two quick highlights. For the first time in some time, both of our enterprise funds operated with a surplus. Water sewer, roughly $500,000 to the good, and solid waste, about $750,000 to the good. So dramatic turnaround in a short period of time. Couldn't be more proud of our General Services Director, Mark, and his team, following the data, making good business decisions. But collectively, we'll present how the organization operated and closed its fiscal year financially here in 2 weeks.
Any questions on this item? All right, hearing none, this item will remain on the agenda. Item number 8, other discussion items. I'll remind you to submit any reports you have for the clerk to be included in our agenda package for our regular meeting, and a few courtesy reminders. Our regular meeting will be on September 17th at 6 p.m. Still always looking for groups to lead our Pledge of Allegiance at our meeting. You can sign up via the county's website. Continue to highlight spay and neuter and cover your loads if you're going to the convenience centers. And help us pick up trash along the way. No other action items? Anything from anybody? Nope. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0. Thank you very much for being here today. Appreciate your attendance.